After Kevin got back from Professor Murdoch's office, he sat down in his seat and started to check his phone. Before he could even pull it out, Penny turned around and put a note on his desk. The students who saw this started whispering to each other, wondering what was going on. Kevin didn't care what they thought. He could see the note that said, "Sorry, I was wrong about you." This made Kevin feel a little awkward. If he replied that's okay, it would seem that he didn't think that much of himself, but if he said too much, she might think he was full of himself. This isn't going to be easy, Kevin scratched his head and thought to himself. While he was trying to figure out what to say to Penny, his phone started buzzing like crazy in his lap. Kevin took a look and saw that he had a ridiculous number of messages from Gwen Archer. There were texts saying things like, "Why are you asking me about this?" and "Are you angry?" "Please don't be mad at me," one of the messages said. "I promise I won't let my brother fight Dalton again." Kevin was confused about what to do. He just asked Gwen about Dalton in yesterday's class when Professor Murdoch took his phone away, but he never expected Gwen to send him dozens of texts in just one day. After thinking for a while, Kevin replied to her briefly, "If you really want me to teach you to be an apothecary, don't let anyone bother Dalton Steele again. Otherwise, you won't be able to get another power pill from me ever again." Meanwhile, Penny was starting to get very anxious. She'd only written one simple sentence. Why was Kevin taking so long to respond? Finally, Penny couldn't stand the suspense and she turned around to look at Kevin. She was shocked to see that he was playing with his phone with his head down. He hadn't even touched her note. Why was he ignoring her, she wondered. Penny wasn't used to anyone giving her the brush off. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. How could he do this to her when she just offered him an olive branch? But Kevin wasn't aware any of this was going on. He was in the middle of a heated argument with Gwen Archer. "Your brother took the power pill I gave him and then used his force against my best friend. And now you still want me to be your teacher? Is that all you think of me?" Kevin replied angrily. "I didn't have anything to do with it. When Dalton came to our mansion, I hardly said a thing to him. So don't blame me," she explained. Then Gwen begged him anxiously, "Please let me be your student. I'll consider Dalton to be part of my family and ask my brother to get along with the Steele family. We'll even come to an agreement on our conflict with the bar Dalton opened." Kevin grunted and simply replied, "I'll believe it when I see it." Then Kevin put away his phone. Penny's note had been blown onto the floor by a light breeze. While this was going on, Randall Williams was in his New York mansion having coffee with Seth Roundtree. After he'd gotten the call from Randall the evening before, Roundtree had rushed to New York as soon as he could. He'd managed to get there by this morning. "Mr. Williams, by joining the Myriads, you've made a wise decision for your family," Roundtree stated plainly as he put his coffee cup down on the table. "I'll take you tonight to meet with the senior members. That way we'll all be clear about what we can expect from each other in this relationship." "I'd like to talk to you about the herbal meds for my family," Randall asked him reluctantly. As long as his family was joining the Myriads, he wanted them to start making progress as soon as possible. "Don't worry, I have plenty of pills for you. Tonight I'll ask my people to let you have some of the construction pills," Roundtree reassured him. Then he pulled a training manual out of his briefcase and said, "Take this as my gift to your family to commemorate your acceptance into the Myriads." Randall had an unsure look on his face as he took the book. When he saw the title, he got very excited. It was Instruction Manual for Myriads Members, Physical and Cognitive Training. That's right. This is the manual that our organization has developed over the years to give all of our members a physical and mental edge over our competition, Roundtree explained proudly. "I'd only heard rumors about this," Randall exclaimed. "I can't believe I'm holding it in my hands." He was beyond excited. If his family mastered this training, they wouldn't have to answer to anyone. "There's a lot of valuable information in there. Some of it we developed on our own. Other things have been picked up by infiltrating various groups. Roundtree practically whispered as though he were afraid of someone hearing him admit it. "This is a truly generous gift," Randall said gratefully. "Look how happy you are. But don't worry. I can guarantee you that this is only the beginning. Once you join us, as long as you sincerely contribute to the organization, there will be more good things in store for you than you can ever imagine." Roundtree boasted as he leaned back in his chair. Then he said more soberly, "But there are other groups that are unwilling to share. Does that sound right to you?" "What you're saying makes sense," Randall replied distractedly. But at the moment, he couldn't take his eyes off the manual that Roundtree had given him. "Okay, I still have some business to attend to. Make sure that your family gets started right away. The construction pills will be delivered by 10 o'clock tonight at the latest," Roundtree assured him. Then he said, "I have to get going." Roundtree closed up his briefcase and headed out the door, leaving Randall to flip enthusiastically through the book. At the School for the Healing Arts, they included a physical education class in the curriculum. It looked a lot like what you might find at any ordinary college. The big difference was that their instructors in basic martial arts techniques had highly specialized training, and the class itself was grueling. In a 2-hour class, they only rested for a few minutes at a time. Kevin was assigned to Group 24, which was training close to Phoebe Anderson and Sherwin Blair, who were in Group 25. Kevin had already moved way beyond the basic moves that were being demonstrated in the class, so he found a shady spot and lay down on the ground where he could watch the rest of the students practice. Suddenly, Lily walked up to him holding 2 bottles of water. She smiled and offered one to Kevin. "Sweetie, do you want some water?" Kevin nodded and returned her smile. He popped Lily's bottle open and handed it back to her. Lily sat down right next to Kevin and put her head on his shoulder. A few of the men in the class who were interested in Lily were very jealous of Kevin when they saw this. "Hey, isn't that Lily? Who's that guy she's sitting with?" one of them asked. "You don't know who that is? I thought everyone had heard of him. He's Lily's husband," another student explained to him. "Didn't you say their marriage was on the rocks? They definitely aren't acting like it," he replied. Kevin could hear their discussions and he started to smile. He'd also felt that Lily had become more and more affectionate lately. Just then, another beautiful woman walked over to Kevin. Phoebe Anderson handed Kevin a bottle of water and gave him a pleasant smile. "You must be thirsty, Kevin," she remarked as she looked him in the eyes and completely ignored Lily. "I'm very flattered, Miss Anderson," Kevin teased her. "Don't forget that I still owe you a meal. When are you free?" she asked him. She clearly remembered that their dinner had been interrupted by Officer Emmett. Phoebe still hadn't properly thanked him for the Dream Lover necklace. Whenever Phoebe had nothing to do, she would start thinking about Kevin. That's why she'd brought along an antique Italian hairpin with her, so she'd have an excuse to spend some time with him. "I've got tons of free time. Just say when," Kevin answered playfully. "We can figure that out later. But first, I wonder if you can take a look at this Italian hairpin," Phoebe asked as she handed it to Kevin. She could feel Lily's eyes on her. But Phoebe was smart. She knew that she needed a good excuse to spend some time with Kevin, and her plan seemed to work. When Lily saw that Phoebe had an actual business-related question for Kevin, she stopped giving her the evil eye. But she still kept a watchful eye on the two of them. "That's a very nice piece," Kevin said as he turned the hairpin over in his hand. "It's genuine onyx and gold. The cameo looks like a member of the Italian royal family. My conservative estimate is $90,000. Their conversation started to draw some stares from the other students who were taking their break. Why was this loser so popular? If Lily and Kevin had such a great thing going, what was Phoebe Anderson trying to do? They just couldn't figure it out. Then one of the rich kids walked over and said very loudly, "You'd better not get involved with Kevin. Did you know he stole Penny Sutherland's phone at the Whistler Hotel last night? He was exposed in front of the entire class. I wouldn't let him near any of your expensive antiques." "You must be joking," Phoebe laughed. Then she added very seriously, "He is our antique shop's chief appraiser." The man's jaw dropped when she said that. He turned around and walked away without saying another word. The cameo has incredible detail, but I think that the pin itself was probably repaired in the late 1700s, Kevin added thoughtfully. Wow, you really know your stuff. Even my father didn't know that much about it, but you could tell all that with just a glance? Phoebe gushed. Her eyes were almost shining with admiration. I never knew my husband was so skilled, Lily commented. She emphasized the word husband to send a message to Phoebe. Phoebe felt some disappointment when she heard Lily say that. I wish I'd met Kevin first, Phoebe thought to herself. Kevin sensed the tension. Just as he was about to say something to change the subject, he heard a firm voice telling him to have some more water. It sounded more like a command than a friendly request. The three of them turned around at the same time to see who it was. Kevin gulped nervously when he saw Penny standing there looking down at him. The students who had been watching Kevin so enviously for the past few minutes couldn't take it anymore. What the hell is this? Now Penny's giving Kevin water too? One of them commented. What's he got that I don't? Another one said. They had no idea what these three women saw in the guy. It was bad enough that Lily and Phoebe were fawning over Kevin, but now Penny was joining in. What's this about, Penny? Kevin asked her inquisitively. He couldn't figure out what she wanted from him. I just wanted to say that I was wrong about you, Kevin. Take this bottle of water as a peace offering, Penny said coolly. No one knew just how conflicted Penny was feeling as she did this. She was from a very important family and was usually very reserved. It was a big deal for her to offer something to a man that lots of people in the school thought was such a loser. But she also knew that what had happened that morning had been her fault. She'd treated Kevin like a thief and almost had him thrown out of the school when he'd only been trying to help her. On top of that, when Penny passed that note to Kevin and he didn't reply, she couldn't think of any other way to make it up to him. Don't worry about it, Penny. It was a simple misunderstanding, Kevin said graciously. He could feel all the eyes on him, and it didn't feel too good. I always try to deal with people fairly, she explained. How about if I treat you to dinner sometime? The more nonchalant Kevin acted, the more Penny felt sorry for him. She didn't say it very loud, but everyone heard her invitation very clearly. The guys who had a crush on Penny just couldn't stand it. What the heck did she see in him? Kevin was starting to make a lot of enemies in his class without even trying. Lily and Phoebe were also a little wary of her. Was Penny an old friend of Kevin's? Why was she inviting him to dinner? Phoebe was starting to feel very uneasy. She was already in competition with Lily, and now there was someone new she had to deal with. But Lily was getting even more nervous. She knew exactly who Penny was. She was from the most important family in the city, and she was also very attractive. Lily was afraid that Penny might try to steal Kevin from her. Right then, Lily promised herself not to let anyone take her husband away from her. And it was up to her to do something about it. Lily was feeling a little jealous of Phoebe until Penny stopped by to offer Kevin some water. Then she invited Kevin to dinner as a peace offering for not believing his explanation of how he'd ended up with her phone. Lily had promised herself not to let anyone try to break up her relationship with Kevin, so she took the initiative and held Kevin's hand. Hubby, your classmate's offer sounds wonderful. Let's take her up on it. Then Lily looked over at Phoebe and added, Why don't you come along too, Phoebe? It's always a lot more fun to have a big group. Kevin was pleasantly surprised to hear Lily talking so kindly and gently. This was the first time he'd seen her like this in all the years they'd been married. Just as Kevin was about to nod his head and agree to the plan, a sharp sword suddenly flew toward them from nearby. Kevin saw that it was about to hit Phoebe's shoulder, so he jumped up off the ground and leapt in front of her. At the same time, he reached out and snatched the sword. Who the hell would do something as mindless as that? With all these people around, you could kill someone, Kevin thought to himself. He tossed the sword onto the ground just as a tall, rugged man with an incredibly guilty look on his face ran over to them. The man calmly picked the sword up off the ground and said very apologetically, I'm really sorry about that.
It accidentally slipped out of my hand while I was practicing. I'm so glad I didn't hurt anyone."
He was Frank Carter, one of the martial arts instructors at the School for the Healing Arts. Although Frank was acting like a very friendly and easygoing guy, he was actually being pretty hypocritical. On the first day of school, he'd noticed Lily and Phoebe and had a crush on both of the women, but he'd never found a good excuse to go up and talk to either of them. When he saw Lily and Phoebe sitting with Kevin, Frank absolutely lost it. "You really should be more careful when you're practicing your sword techniques. Even though you're an instructor, you still could hurt someone," Kevin grumbled.
"You're absolutely right. I'll try to pay attention next time."
Frank replied cheerfully, but he was actually cursing Kevin under his breath.
"Who the hell do you think you are to teach me a lesson? Just see how I'll deal with you later."
Then Frank turned around and walked away while he continued to show off his sword moves for the group of young students who had been watching him. Frank's interruption really ruined Kevin's mood, but he still thought he'd be a fool to pass up a chance to have Penny treat him. "So it's a plan. Let's all go out and have dinner tonight." "Okay," Penny agreed right away. Then she eyed Lily and Phoebe before walking off the training field. Suddenly, Lily hugged Kevin's arms and pouted slightly. "Why is Penny treating you to a meal? Is there something going on between the two of you that you're keeping from me?" Phoebe also stared at Kevin and wondered what the deal was. In the face of stiff competition like Penny, she and Lily were kind of on the same side now. Right then, a stone hit Lily really hard on the shoulder and she winced in pain. Kevin knew right away who'd done it, and he was really pissed. Frank jogged over to them with a big smile on his face. His apology really sounded sincere.
"Sorry, Lily. I hope I didn't hurt you. The students asked me to demonstrate a throwing technique and it got away from me. Did it hurt a lot?"
Then he added,
"I can show you a special massage that'll make you feel better before you know it."
But Frank didn't care whether Lily felt better or not. He started to reach out to touch her shoulder, but Lily pulled back. Before Frank even got near her, Kevin grabbed his wrist and snarled, "I think you're looking for trouble."
"You really should show more respect to your teachers,"
Frank shouted angrily. "Respect you? For what? Are you even qualified to be teaching here? Apologize to my wife immediately or you'll regret it," Kevin threatened him.
"What did you just say? There's a little too much noise out here. I didn't hear you clearly."
Frank tilted his head and whispered into Kevin's ear, "I was telling you to apologize. Or don't you understand plain English?" Kevin roared back. The commotion started to draw a crowd of onlookers. "Am I seeing things? Is this guy actually starting a fight with a martial arts instructor?" One of them asked the other. They were all certain that Kevin would be absolutely destroyed by Frank. After all, he was good enough to be on the school's faculty. They figured that the best outcome for Kevin was that he'd end up in the hospital. Sherwin Blair squeezed through the crowd and shouted at Kevin, "You're getting more and more cocky all the time, you..." "Frank's our martial arts teacher, you goof. Do you have any idea how much trouble you're getting into? If I were you, I'd immediately let go of his wrist and beg for forgiveness. If you're lucky, maybe he'll let you go," Blair laughed. "Kevin, let's just forget about it. It really didn't hurt that much anyway," Lily pleaded with him. She was worried about what would happen to her husband, and she could tell that Frank was just looking for a fight. Plus, since he was an instructor, the school would probably take his side in the disagreement, and Kevin would be finished there. "No, Lily. If I don't teach him a lesson this time, he'll just keep doing this over and over," Kevin told her. He'd seen lots of people like Frank Carter and he knew how it would go.
"I'll tell you what," Frank retorted. "If you want to fight with me, that's what you'll get."
Then he picked up a sword and pointed it right at Kevin. He didn't seem to care what he did to Kevin, he was so angry. The group of onlookers started to make a lot of noise. Phoebe and Lily were getting incredibly anxious. Both of them knew that Kevin could fight, but had he ever fought someone who was good enough to teach at the School for the Healing Arts? But Kevin wasn't afraid at all. His training in the herbal meds had given him incredible power, right down to his DNA. Frank was pretty impressive to beginners, but he wasn't a threat. In fact, the two of them weren't even on the same level. Just as Kevin was about to attack, everyone heard somebody shout, "Stop that right now! This is a university campus, not some back alley." Frank immediately withdrew his sword and Kevin relaxed his fist. Professor Murdoch walked over to them and chastised Frank. "Do you think it's right to bully students? We're supposed to protect them."
"It's not what it looks like, Professor Murdoch. Kevin wanted to do some extra training during our break, so I was just testing him,"
Frank tried to explain. "These students just got here a few days ago. How could you be testing them when they haven't even learned the basics?" Professor Murdoch glared. Everyone on the faculty knew that Frank was a player, but he had some relatives who had pretty good connections and his martial arts skills were pretty good, so they put up with a lot of his nonsense.
"We were just messing around, Professor. Everything's under control."
Frank kept smiling the whole time he was talking, but he was acting a lot less arrogant now that Professor Murdoch was there. "Instructor Carter, I don't care if you're kidding around or not. If you hurt any of this school's students, you'll answer for it," Professor Murdoch explained in no uncertain terms. Lily and Phoebe both heaved a sigh of relief. Now that Professor Murdoch was there, they knew that Frank wouldn't dare to try anything else. Otherwise, Kevin would definitely be in big trouble right now.
"Of course, Professor Murdoch. I'd never let things get out of hand. Just ask the students,"
Frank replied with his fake smile. He was trying to make it look like he was being falsely accused. Blair immediately stood up for his teacher. "Professor Murdoch, this is all a big misunderstanding. Kevin was being very rude and he just needed to learn a lesson." As he spoke, Blair made sure that he sneered at Kevin. He thought to himself, "You're so lucky you got out of this, you loser." Then Lionel also piped up. "Don't be too hard on Mr. Carter. How could an instructor at this school possibly be bullying students?"
"That's right. He was teaching us sword skills just now. The lesson was to practice hard and try to make positive contributions to society as soon as we can," Luther agreed. Kevin almost laughed out loud when he heard these guys. Lionel and Luther were such good liars. They sounded completely sincere. Phoebe and Lily were even angrier than Kevin by now. They couldn't understand how these guys could tell such bald-faced lies. Professor Murdoch looked at them all one by one. Finally, her gaze stopped on Kevin. "Come with me. I've got something to tell you," she requested. She knew just how powerful Kevin was and that Frank wouldn't stand a chance against him, so it was entirely possible that Kevin had wised off to him since he wasn't afraid. When they got to Professor Murdoch's office, she informed him, "You've earned your reward." Kevin wasn't sure what she was talking about and asked her, "What reward?" "Don't you remember what I told you in class? The high donor for the fundraiser receives a reward from the school," Professor Murdoch explained. Then she glanced at Kevin and asked him, "Don't you want it?" "Of course I'm interested, Professor, but I don't know what it is," Kevin replied frankly. "Since it's coming from the school, it must be something good, right? Is the reward some kind of advanced technique or a medicinal pill with superhuman effects?" "An advanced technique or a medicinal pill? Don't forget that this is a school, so your reward will be a little more academic," Professor Murdoch reminded him. "Your reward will be to have access to the library's Special Collections Annex. You can choose any book you like and check it out." "What kind of reward is that?" Kevin was stunned. He looked out at Professor Murdoch's office window and could see the library. Any student could get into the building if they wanted. "Don't you like the reward?" Professor Murdoch could tell what Kevin was thinking with just a glance. "I just don't see what's so special about this," Kevin replied dejectedly. "It sounds like you really haven't read through the school's regulations," she scowled. "Let me be frank with you. The books in special collections from the 1st to the 10th floor are actually just copies of the original editions. There's a vast amount of information in them, and you can find out just about anything you need to know."
But students are strictly forbidden to take any of the books in the library, she added. But what's the use of it for me to check out a single book? Kevin couldn't help but ask. Anyway, as long as the other students can enter special collections too, they can read whatever they want. Just hear me out, Professor Murdoch answered bluntly. The books from the 11th to the 13th floor are extremely rare. They're the only copies in existence. I myself don't even know what's contained in them. What? You don't even know? Kevin was astonished. Do you think that just anyone is allowed to go up to the top floors? Professor Murdoch asked him as she slowly walked over to the window and showed him the imposing structure. Then she said very seriously, "The top 3 floors are strictly guarded. If you don't have permission, you can't even get up there. And if anyone were to sneak in, they'd be severely punished. I was only allowed access to the 11th floor when I first joined the faculty. The administration let me see the top 2 floors, but I wasn't permitted to touch anything," she revealed. Then she turned around and looked Kevin in the eyes. "So now do you understand how important this reward is?" Kevin's eyes widened when he heard that. "Do you mean I can enter the top 3 floors?" "That's right. You can go anywhere from the 11th to the 13th floors and you can stay there for 10 hours. Professor Murdoch explained with just a hint of jealousy. What Kevin didn't know was that when Professor Murdoch went to the 11th floor, she was only allowed to stay there for an hour. "Well, when you put it that way, my donation was worth it," Kevin joked. But Professor Murdoch still wasn't sure about Kevin's enormous donation to the fundraiser. How could he have had that much money to throw around? She was so curious that she looked into it and found out that Lily had only donated $25,000. Compared to the millions that Kevin had donated, it was just a drop in the bucket. Seeing the excitement in Kevin's eyes, Professor Murdoch decided to throw some cold water on his ambitions. "Don't be too optimistic about the top floor. The books on that level are only for the most advanced experts. Ordinary people, even excellent students, aren't ready for them. So don't be greedy," she advised. "Choose a book that you're ready to read and can benefit from it for the rest of your life. That would be much more sensible than choosing something that you're not ready to grasp." "Are they really that difficult?" Kevin frowned slightly. "You'll know when the time comes. I'll take you over there right now to prevent any misunderstanding with the guards," Professor Murdoch offered as she gestured toward the door. A few minutes later, they bumped into Penny. "I'm sorry, Penny. Professor Murdoch and I have some things to deal with, so I'm afraid I'll have to take a rain check on our dinner," Kevin explained apologetically. "That's okay. Just let me know when you have the time," Penny replied. She was still acting a little aloof, but Kevin's willingness to put off their dinner only made her even more interested in him.
Hi, Kevin here. If you're wondering what happens next, then stay tuned on the Pocket FM Universe channel for more episodes.